I came to Bangkok because I wanted to find peace. After difficult months, sleepless nights, and a breakup that left me empty, I decided I needed something different. Something to take me out of my routine. To show me that the world was bigger than my problems. I read about Buddhist temples, saw pictures of the golden halls, of monks meditating in silence, and I thought that there I could breathe again. I imagined I would walk slowly, smell the incense, listen to the chants, take beautiful photos, and return home renewed. I wanted spirituality. I wanted to reconnect with myself. I never imagined I would run out of a temple with my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I never imagined a monk would look at me and say I was being followed. On the third day of my trip, I entered Wat Phra Kaew shortly after midday. The place was full of tourists, but inside the halls everything was silent. I walked slowly, observing every detail, every statue, every reflection of light on the golden walls. I felt safe there. I felt I was finally in the right place. But then I began to notice that a man was always behind me. At first I thought it was a coincidence. Then I realized he was following me from room to room. And when the elderly monk approached, stopped in front of me and whispered those words, everything changed. The temple ceased to be a sanctuary. It became a trap. And I was in the middle of it, alone, not knowing who those men were or what they wanted from me. What happened after that was the worst moment of my life. I tried to leave, but they blocked the passages. I tried to ask for help, but nobody understood. I ran through alleys I didn't know, not knowing if I would be able to escape. Bangkok became a labyrinth where every corner could be the last. And it all started because I wanted to visit a temple. Because I wanted to find peace in a sacred place. But I found something completely different. Before we continue, please comment below with the city you are watching from. Subscribe to the channel and leave a like. My name is Adam Collins. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a freelance designer in Seattle. For the past few months, my life has been a mess. I ended a 3-year relationship, lost 2 important clients, and started having insomnia. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and stare at the ceiling, feeling trapped in a routine that led nowhere. My friends told me I needed to get out, travel, do something different. I'd always wanted to visit Asia. I'd always been interested in Buddhism, meditation, that kind of thing. So I took my savings, bought a ticket to Bangkok, and decided I was going to spend 10 days alone, without any definite plans. Just me, my camera, and the temples. I arrived in Bangkok on a Monday morning. The heat hit me as soon as I left the airport. It was a heavy, humid heat that clung to my skin. I took a taxi to the hotel in the Khao San Road area. The driver didn't speak English very well, but he was friendly. He pointed to the buildings, to the river, trying to explain things I didn't understand. I just nodded and smiled. I looked out the window and saw a world completely different from my own. Colorful temples among gray buildings, food stalls on the sidewalk, motorcycles passing everywhere. Electrical wires hanging in webs above the streets. Everything was chaotic, but it had an energy that cheered me up. The hotel was simple. Small room, noisy air conditioning, but clean. I left my backpack, took a shower, and went for a walk. I hadn't slept well on the plane, but I was too anxious to rest. I wanted to see the city right away. I walked along Khao San Road, which was full of tourists, bars, shops selling colorful clothes and Thai food. The smell was a mixture of fried food, incense, and sweat. I bought a pad thai at a stall and ate it sitting on a plastic stool. It was good, well seasoned, spicy, just right. I watched the people passing by. Young backpackers laughing loudly, couples taking photos, vendors offering tours and massages. I felt part of it. I felt alive again. On the second day, I went to visit Wat Phra, the temple of the reclining Buddha. I took a tuk-tuk, and the driver took me through narrow streets, honking the whole time, skillfully dodging cars and motorcycles. When we arrived, I paid and went in. Right at the entrance, I had to take off my shoes. I left them in one of the lockers and walked barefoot on the hot floor. The place was enormous. There were tourists everywhere, but also local devotees kneeling, praying silently. I really didn't know what to do. I just walked slowly, observing. When I entered the main hall and saw the reclining Buddha, I was awestruck. The statue was gigantic, covered in gold leaf, and occupied almost the entire space. Its feet had mother-of-pearl details. I took several photos, trying to capture its grandeur, but none did it justice. I stood there for about 20 minutes just looking. There was a profound silence in that room, despite the people. A silence that seemed to weigh heavily on the air. I felt small. I felt insignificant, but in a good way. As if my problems were small too. I spent the rest of the day wandering around Bangkok without a specific destination. I went into markets, tried fruits I didn't recognize, and bought ice water constantly because the heat was relentless. In the evening I returned to Khao San Road and had dinner at a street restaurant. I ordered a green curry and a local beer. I was tired, but satisfied. I felt I had made the right choice in coming here. On the third day, I woke up early. I wanted to enjoy the morning before the heat became unbearable. I decided to visit Wat Phra, the Temple of Dawn. I took a boat across the Chao Phraya River. The river was wide, brown, and full of boats of all sizes. The breeze on my face was pleasant. I watched the city passing by on its banks. Ancient buildings, temples, simple houses, all mixed together. Wat Arun was different from Wat Phra. It had a huge central tower, decorated with pieces of colorful porcelain that shimmered in the sun. I climbed the steep stairs to the middle of the tower. The steps were narrow and high. I had to climb slowly, holding on to the handrail. From up there, I could see all of Bangkok. The river, the buildings in the distance, other temples, the movement of the streets. I stood there for a while just looking. I took some photos, but I spent most of the time just breathing, trying to capture that moment in my memory. Then I went down and walked through the temple gardens. There were few people there at that time. Some tourists, some locals lighting incense. I felt good. I felt at peace. I thought I was getting what I came for. That feeling of renewal, of a new beginning. I thought the next few days would be like that. Peaceful, inspiring. In the afternoon, I returned to the hotel, rested a bit, and went out again. I went to a night market that had been recommended to me. The place was immense. Stalls selling everything: clothes, electronics, crafts, food. The smell of grilled meat and spices filled the air. I bought some souvenirs for friends, a Buddha statuette for my mother, colorful bracelets, silly refrigerator magnets, typical tourist stuff. I had dinner at a restaurant in the market. Tom Yum, a spicy soup with shrimp. It was excellent. My mouth burned, but I liked it. I walked back to the hotel. The streets were packed. Loud music blared from the bars. People were drinking on the sidewalks. Vendors were still selling things. Bangkok didn't sleep early. I went into my room, took a shower, and lay down. I picked up my phone and saw messages from friends asking how the trip was going. I replied saying it was incredible, that I was feeling good, that it had been a great idea. And it was true. At that moment, I truly believed it. On the fourth day, I decided to visit the Grand Palace and Wat Phra Kaew, the Temple of the Emerald Buddha. I had read that it was the most important temple in Bangkok, the most sacred. I wanted to leave it for a day when I had more energy, when I was more present. I woke up, had breakfast at the hotel, very sweet Thai coffee and bread with jam, and took a taxi. The Grand Palace was located in the historic center. When the taxi stopped in front, I could already see the high walls and the rooftops gleaming in the sun. I paid the fare and went in. There was a long line at the ticket office. Tourists of all nationalities. Chinese, Europeans, Indians, Americans. Everyone sweating. Everyone with a camera in their hand. I bought my ticket, went through security, and entered. The place was impressive. Enormous buildings with golden details, layered roofs, giant statues guarding the entrances. Everything was very ornate, very colorful. It seemed unreal. It looked like a movie set. I walked slowly, trying to absorb everything. I took photos, but I knew the photos wouldn't capture the grandeur of it all. I entered Wat Phra Kaew shortly after noon. The temple was located within the Grand Palace complex. There were many people outside, in the gardens, taking pictures of the facades. But when you entered the halls, everything became quieter. People naturally lowered their voices. There was a respect in the air, a reverence. I took off my shoes as usual and went in barefoot. The floor was cold despite the heat outside. I walked slowly down one of the corridors. The walls were covered with old paintings, murals telling stories I didn't know. There were statues of Buddha in various positions, some seated, others standing, each with a different expression. I stopped in front of each one, trying to understand what they represented. It was in one of the smaller halls, further away from the main area, that I began to feel something strange. It wasn't anything obvious. It wasn't fear yet. It was just an unsettling feeling, as if someone were watching me. I looked around and saw some people. Tourists, kneeling devotees, temple guards. Nothing wrong. I kept walking. I entered another room. This one was larger, with tall windows that let in sunlight. There were fewer people there. I stood observing a large statue in the center. It was bronze, very old in appearance. I stood there for a few minutes, and then I noticed. There was a man standing near the wall, about 5 meters behind me. He wasn't looking at the statue. He was looking at me. When our eyes met, he quickly looked away. I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was just resting. I left that room and went to another. I stood observing some details on the walls, some small sculptures. A few minutes later, I looked back. The same man was there, now near the entrance of the room, standing there, looking in my direction again. My stomach clenched. This was no coincidence. I tried to calm myself. Maybe he was following the same script as me. Maybe it was just my paranoia. But the bad feeling persisted. I decided to leave that corridor and go to the main area, where there were more people. I walked quickly without running. I passed groups of tourists, families taking pictures. I blended into the crowd and took a deep breath. I looked back. I didn't see the man. I thought I had lost him. I thought it had just been my imagination. I stood there for about 10 minutes, trying to calm down. I bought some water from a vendor outside the main hall. I drank it slowly. My heart was still racing. I thought about leaving, but I figured it would be silly. I came all this way, paid the entrance fee. I wanted to see the whole temple. I wasn't going to let a silly feeling ruin that. I went back inside. I entered one of the last rooms I hadn't yet visited. It was a more secluded, less touristy space. There were only a few people kneeling in prayer. I leaned against a wall and watched. Light streamed in through the windows, creating golden streaks on the floor. Everything was silent, almost solemn. And then I felt someone very close to me. I turned my head. It was an elderly monk. He had a shaved head, wore a faded orange robe, and stared intently at me. His face was serious. He took a step toward me. I stood there, not knowing what to do. He came very close, almost whispering. And then he said in English, with a heavy but understandable accent, the words that changed everything. "Someone has been following you since you came in." I stared at the monk, unable to respond. My whole body froze. He kept his eyes fixed on mine, as if to make sure I understood. Then he took a step back, clasped his hands in front of his chest in a slight bow, and walked away. He walked slowly out of the hall. I stood there, feeling my heart beat faster with each passing second. I looked around. There were only 3 people in the room. 2 women kneeling in prayer, and a man with his back to me, observing a painting on the wall. None of them seemed to be paying attention to me. I tried to think clearly. Perhaps the monk was confused. Perhaps he had mistaken me for someone else. But the way he spoke, His tone of voice, the urgency contained in that whisper. It didn't seem like a mistake. It seemed like a warning. I left that hall and returned to the main corridor. There were more people now. Tourists circulating, taking photos, talking quietly. I tried to blend in, tried to seem natural. But every time someone passed near me, I looked. Every time I heard footsteps behind me, my body tensed. I walked to one of the side exits of the temple. I thought about leaving immediately, but something made me stop. Curiosity, perhaps. Or the need to confirm if it was real or if I was going crazy. I pretended to be looking at my cell phone and used the front camera as a mirror. I turned the device slightly and observed who was behind me. And then I saw him. The same man from before. He was about 10 meters away, standing near a pillar, looking in my direction. He was wearing dark jeans, a simple white shirt, and black sneakers. Nothing flashy, nothing that made him stand out. But now that I knew, it seemed obvious. His posture, the way he didn't interact with anyone else, the way he watched me. I put my phone away and walked quickly toward the main exit. I passed groups of people, dodged running children, ignored vendors offering souvenirs. I just wanted to get out, get to the street, hail a taxi, go back to the hotel. When I was almost at the door, I looked back one more time. The man was no longer there. I thought I had managed to lose him. I took a deep breath and walked through the door. Outside, the heat was stifling. The sun beat down on the stone ground. There were tourists everywhere, lines to take photos, people buying water, people sitting in the shade resting. I started walking towards the exit of the Grand Palace complex. It was about 200 meters to the street. I walked quickly, sweating, feeling my shirt stick to my back. I was almost there when I saw two men standing near the gate. One of them wore a black cap and sunglasses. The other had short hair and a small scar on his chin. They weren't doing anything, just standing there. But when I passed close, the one with the cap turned his head and followed me with his eyes. I left the gate and stopped on the sidewalk. Taxis were passing by, tuk-tuks were honking, street vendors were offering drinks. Everything normal, everything chaotic as always. But I couldn't feel safe. I looked back. The two men had left too. They were on the other side of the street, talking to each other, but clearly watching me. I waved to a taxi. It didn't stop. I waved to another. It didn't stop either. I started walking along the sidewalk, looking for an empty taxi. I felt the men following me from the other side of the street. I went into a convenience store. I pretended to be looking at products on the shelves. I grabbed a bottle of ice water and went to the cashier. The cashier was a young Thai woman who smiled and said something I didn't understand. I paid and drank half the bottle right there. My hands were trembling. I looked through the store window. The two men were standing outside, about 20 meters away, waiting. I left the store and turned left, walking quickly. The street was busy. Cars, motorcycles, buses, people crossing haphazardly. I kept walking, sweating, breathing heavily. I looked back. They were following me, not running, not drawing attention, just walking in the same direction as me, keeping a steady distance, as if they knew they didn't need to hurry, as if they knew I had nowhere to go. I turned onto a smaller side street. There were fewer people there, a few closed shops, food stalls, a small temple at the end of the street. I quickened my pace. I could hear my own footsteps echoing. I could hear my own panting breath. I turned onto another street. This one was even narrower. Hanging electrical wires formed a web above my head. There were motorcycles parked on the sidewalks. I looked back. One of the men, the one with the cap, had turned the corner too. He was alone now. He walked with his hands in his pockets, calm, but following me. I started running. I couldn't pretend everything was okay anymore. I ran down the narrow street, dodging people, almost knocking over a bicycle leaning against the wall. I heard someone shout something in Thai. I didn't stop. I turned right into an even narrower alley. There was accumulated trash in the corners, a smell of sewage, dirty walls. I kept running. My lungs burned. My vision was blurred with sweat. I reached the end of the alley and came out onto a larger street. There was heavy traffic, honking horns, exhaust fumes. I stopped to catch my breath, leaning against a wall. I looked back. Nobody. The alley was empty. I thought I'd lost him. I took several deep breaths, trying to calm myself. I wiped the sweat from my face with my shirt. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt in my chest. I started walking along the sidewalk, slower now. I needed to find a safe place. A hotel. A police station. Anything. I saw an open clothing store and went in. There was a saleswoman behind the counter looking at her cell phone. She looked at me, saw my state, sweating, out of breath, and frowned. She asked something in Thai. I didn't understand. I tried to explain in English that I needed help, that someone was following me. She didn't understand. She kept looking at me with a confused expression. I took out my phone and tried to use the translator. I typed the words and showed them to her. She read them, looked at me, then back at the screen. She said something and gestured, pointing to the street. I don't know if she understood or if she was telling me to leave. I left the store. The street was still busy. Everything seemed normal to everyone else, except me. I walked a few more blocks. I went into a small market. There were people buying fruit, meat, and fish. The smell was strong. I walked between the stalls, looking back the whole time. Nobody was following me. I went out the back door and found myself in a residential area. Low houses, clothes hanging on clotheslines, children playing in the street. It seemed like a safer place, more peaceful. I sat on a step and drank the rest of the water. My legs were trembling. I picked up my cell phone again and thought about calling someone. Who? The Thai police? I didn't even know their number. My friends in Seattle? What could they do? I thought about going straight back to the hotel, getting my things, and leaving Bangkok, taking the first flight back. But it seemed like overkill. It seemed cowardly. And besides, did they even know where I was staying? I sat there for about 15 minutes, trying to decide what to do. I saw an elderly woman walking by with shopping bags. She looked at me curiously but didn't say anything. I saw a stray dog lying in the shade. Everything so normal, so peaceful, as if what had just happened was only in my head. I decided to go back to the hotel, but I wasn't going to walk. I was going to take a taxi and ask the driver to drop me off right at the door. I got up and walked to the nearest main street. It took about 10 minutes for an empty taxi to appear. I waved and he stopped. I got into the back seat and told him the name of the hotel. The driver nodded and drove off. During the journey, I kept looking out the back window. I watched the cars behind me. I searched for familiar faces. The one with the cap. The one with the scar. The one who was in the temple. I didn't see any of them. Maybe I really had managed to escape. Maybe they had given up. When the taxi stopped in front of the hotel, I paid quickly and went inside. The reception area was empty. I went straight up to my room. I locked the door, put on the security latch, and pushed a chair against it. I sat on the bed and stared at the door, waiting. I didn't know for what, just waiting. I grabbed my laptop and searched for information about robberies targeting tourists in Bangkok. I found several accounts. People being followed in temples and markets. People being approached on deserted streets. Scams, robberies, sometimes violence. Most accounts described organized groups that chose easy targets. Lone tourists. Distracted tourists. Tourists who strayed from the busiest areas. That was exactly me. A lone, distracted tourist who entered a temple full of empty corridors and distanced himself from the crowd. A perfect target. I closed my laptop and lay down on the bed. I was exhausted but couldn't sleep. Every noise in the hallway made me jump. Every voice outside made me tense. I picked up my phone and saw that it was already past 7 o'clock at night. I had lost track of time. I was hungry but didn't want to leave my room. I ordered food through the hotel app. Fried rice with chicken. It arrived half an hour later. An employee knocked on the door and I opened it just a crack, grabbed the tray and closed it quickly. I ate in silence, sitting on the bed, looking at the door. I thought about the monk. I wondered how he knew. If he had seen the men following me or if he had noticed something else. I wondered if he warned other people or if I had been the only one. I wondered if I should have stayed close to him, if I should have asked for more help. But it was too late. I had run away and now I was there, locked in a hotel room, afraid to go out. The night was long. I slept poorly. I woke up every hour, sweating, with my heart racing. Every time I checked the door, checked the window, checked if everything was locked. When dawn finally broke, I felt a little better. Daylight always brings a sense of security, even if it's false. I showered, changed my clothes, and sat back down on the bed. I needed to decide what to do. Staying locked up wasn't an option. Leaving Bangkok seemed the most sensible choice, but my flight wasn't for another 6 days. Changing my flight would be expensive. And besides, was I really in danger? Or had I overreacted? Maybe today, in the light of day, everything would be different. I decided to leave. But I was going to be careful. I was going to stay in busy areas. I wasn't going to go into empty temples. I wasn't going to walk alone on deserted streets. I was going to be smart. I left the hotel around 10 in the morning. The street was full of people. Tourists, locals, vendors. I walked to a nearby cafe and ordered a coffee and a croissant. I sat at a table near the window, with my back to the wall, from where I could see the street. I ate slowly, observing each person who passed by. I was almost finished when I saw a man across the street. He was standing in front of a store, looking in the direction of the coffee shop. He was wearing sunglasses and a black cap. My stomach churned. It was him. One of the men from yesterday. I dropped the coffee from my hand. The cup hit the saucer with a clinking sound. A few people looked. I didn't care. My eyes were fixed on the man across the street. He didn't move. He remained there, standing, looking in my direction. It couldn't have been a coincidence. He couldn't have been there by chance. They knew where I was staying. They knew I was going out. They were waiting for me. I jumped up quickly, left some money on the table, and left through the back door of the coffee shop. There was a narrow alley leading to another street. I ran through it, dodging cardboard boxes and garbage bags. My heart was pounding. I reached the parallel street and looked both ways. I didn't see anyone I knew. I started walking fast, almost running, blending in with the people on the sidewalk. I entered a subway station. I ran down the stairs, passed through the turnstile, and waited on the platform. It was quite crowded. I positioned myself in the middle of a group of Japanese tourists. When the train arrived, I got into the most crowded car. I stood, holding onto the handrail, looking out the window at the platform. I saw the man in the cap running down the stairs. He looked around, searching. The train doors began to close. He saw me. Our eyes met for a second. Then the doors closed completely and the train began to move. I took a deep breath. I had done it. He was left behind. But where was I going to go now? I couldn't go back to the hotel. I couldn't just wander around aimlessly. I needed a plan. I grabbed my phone and looked up the American embassy in Bangkok. It was in the Wireless Road area. I mentally wrote down the directions. It was far, but it was the only option that made sense. I got off at the next station and changed lines. I paid attention to each person who entered the carriage. I looked for familiar faces. The one with the cap. The one with the scar. The one who was in the temple. I didn't see any of them. Maybe he really had managed to lose them. I arrived at the station closest to the embassy and went up to the street. It was a different area. Cleaner, more organized. Tall buildings, offices, less mess. I walked through the streets following the map directions on my phone. It took me about 20 minutes to find the embassy. It was a large building, surrounded by high walls and security. There was a line of people waiting outside. I approached the gate. A Thai security guard stopped me. He asked something I didn't understand. I showed him my American passport. He looked at it, nodded, and let me join the queue. I waited along with other people. Most seemed to be there for visa or document issues. When it was my turn, I was directed to a counter. The attendant was American, a woman in her 40s, her hair tied back with a professional expression. She asked how she could help. I told her everything. The temple, the monk, the men following me, the hotel, the coffee shop. I spoke quickly, stumbling over my words, trying to make her understand the gravity of the situation. She listened attentively, making some notes. When I finished, she was silent for a few seconds. Then he said he was going to register my complaint and that I should also file a police report with the Thai police. He asked if I had photos of the men. I didn't. He asked if I knew their names or had any identification. I didn't either. He said that without concrete evidence, there wasn't much the embassy could do, but that they would keep a record of the case. He offered a list of hotels considered safe and said I should avoid walking alone in deserted areas. I thanked them and left. I felt frustrated. I expected more. I expected someone to do something concrete. But I understood. Without proof, without identification, it was just my word against nothing. I looked at the list of hotels. All expensive. Way beyond what I could afford. But at that moment, money was the least of my problems. I took a taxi and asked to be taken to one of the hotels on the list. It was in a more touristy area, near shopping centers and restaurants. When we arrived, I paid and went inside. The reception area was elegant. Strong air conditioning, marble floors, uniformed staff. I felt safer just being there. I asked for a room. The receptionist asked how many nights. I said I didn't know yet. Maybe 2, maybe 3. She registered me, asked for my passport and credit card. I received the room key and went upstairs. It was on the 8th floor. Spacious, clean room with a view of the city. I locked the door and left my backpack on the floor. I sat on the bed and finally allowed the tiredness to take over. I had slept badly. I had run too much. I had felt too much fear. I lay down and closed my eyes. I slept for a few hours. When I woke up, it was already late. I looked at the clock. 5:40 in the afternoon. My stomach was growling with hunger. I hadn't eaten anything decent since yesterday. I went down to the hotel restaurant. It was full. Families, couples, groups of friends. Everything normal. Everything safe. I ordered a plate of Thai noodles and a beer. I ate slowly, observing the people around me. Nobody paid attention to me. Nobody followed me with their eyes. I was just another tourist, dining alone. After eating, I went back to my room and turned on the television. I looked for English channels. I found a CNN news program. I watched it without paying much attention. I just wanted to hear voices, to feel that I wasn't completely isolated. I picked up my cell phone and thought about calling my mother. But what was I going to say? That I was scared? That I had been stupid to travel alone? That I didn't know what to do? I decided not to call. I sent a message saying everything was fine, that Bangkok was amazing, that I was having a great time. I lied, but it was easier that way. I spent the night in the room. I watched movies on the hotel channel. I ate chips from the minibar. I slept a little better than the night before. I woke up early, around 6 in the morning. I took a shower and started thinking about what to do. My flight wasn't for another 5 days. 5 days locked up in an expensive hotel would drain my savings. But going out seemed dangerous. I decided to give it a try. I was going to go out, but I was going to be very careful. I was going to stay in busy places. Shopping malls, main tourist areas, places with security. No temples. No empty streets. I was going to be smart. I left the hotel around 9 in the morning. The street was busy. I took a taxi and asked to be taken to a large shopping center I had seen on the map. The driver waved and drove off. During the ride, I looked out the back window. I observed the cars behind. Nothing suspicious. Everything normal. We arrived at the mall. It was enormous. Several floors, hundreds of stores, thousands of people. I went in and felt good. There, in the middle of so many people, nobody would find me. Nobody would follow me unnoticed. I walked through the corridors, looked at shop windows, went into a few stores. I bought a new shirt. I ate in the food court. Everything very normal. Everything very safe. I spent the whole day there. I watched a movie at the mall cinema. It was an American blockbuster, dubbed in Thai with English subtitles. I didn't pay much attention. I just wanted to pass the time. When I left, it was already getting dark. I took a taxi back to the hotel. Nothing happened. It was a quiet day. I started to think that maybe I had overreacted. Maybe they had given up. Maybe I was just another potential target who managed to escape and was no longer worth pursuing. I felt a certain relief. The next day I decided to take a bit more of a risk. I left the hotel and walked to a nearby restaurant area. It was full of people. I sat at a table on the sidewalk and ordered breakfast. Scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. While I ate, I observed the activity. People going to work, tourists leaving for sightseeing, vendors setting up their stalls. That's when I saw him. Across the street, leaning against a lamppost, the man with the scar. He had his arms crossed, looking directly at me. He wasn't trying to hide. He wasn't looking away. He just stood there, watching me, as if he wanted me to know, as if he wanted to show me that they were still there, that they knew where I was, that they hadn't given up. My whole body froze. The forkful of eggs stopped halfway down. Slowly, I placed the fork on the plate. The man didn't move. He kept staring at me. I felt a different kind of fear now. It wasn't the fear of surprise, of uncertainty anymore. It was the fear of knowing, of being certain. They were hunting me, and they were good at it. I got up slowly, left some money on the table, and started walking. I didn't run. I knew it wouldn't do any good. They found me every time. They knew where I was. How? Had they followed me to the new hotel? Were they watching the embassy? Did they have access to security cameras? It didn't make sense. But it was happening. I walked along the sidewalk trying to think. I needed help. Real help. Not the embassy bureaucracy. Not the language barrier with the police. I needed someone who knew the city. Someone who could help me disappear. But who? I didn't know anyone in Bangkok. I saw a flower stall on the corner. A young woman was arranging the vases. She had long black hair tied in a ponytail, wore a faded t-shirt and denim shorts. She looked to be in her early 20s. She saw me looking and smiled. She asked something in Thai. I replied in English that I didn't understand. She laughed and said in accented English, "Do you want to buy flowers?" I looked back. The man with the scar was crossing the street. He was coming towards me. I looked at the girl and said quickly, "I need help. Someone is following me." She stopped smiling. She looked over my shoulder and saw the man approaching. Her expression changed. It became serious. She took my hand and said, "Come with me, quickly." The girl pulled me by the hand behind the flower stall. There was a narrow alley there, so tight that two people could barely pass side by side. She ran inside, and I followed her. I heard the man with the scar shout something in Thai behind us. The girl didn't stop. She kept running, turning left, then right, through alleys that seemed to connect in an endless labyrinth. I could barely keep up. My lungs burned. My legs felt heavy. She knew every corner, every shortcut. She led me behind restaurants, between food stalls, under rusty metal staircases. The smell changed every second. Frying, garbage, incense, sewage, all mixed together. I stumbled over boxes, bags, loose wires on the floor. She held my hand tightly, pulling me forward. We stopped behind an abandoned building. She leaned against the wall, breathing rapidly, and motioned for me to be quiet. We stood there, listening. Footsteps. Male voices speaking Thai. They passed close by but didn't see us. We waited a few more seconds. The sound faded. The girl looked at me and whispered, "My name is Knock. You need to trust me." I just nodded. I had no choice. She was the only person who had helped me. The only one who had acted when I asked. Knock looked both ways down the alley and started walking again. Slower now. She led me through a few more streets until we reached a busier area. There were shops open, people walking, motorcycles passing by. She stopped in front of an electronics store and pulled me inside. The shop owner, a middle-aged overweight man with thick glasses, looked at us curiously. Knock spoke something quickly in Thai. He nodded and pointed to a back door. We went in. It was a small warehouse full of stacked boxes, tangled cables, and old appliances. Knock closed the door and turned to me. "They're going to keep looking for you," she said. "You can't go back to your hotel. You can't walk alone on the main streets. They have people in various places. They know Bangkok better than you do." "Who are they?" I asked, still breathless. "Why are they doing this?" "They're criminals," she replied. "They follow tourists, especially those who are alone. They wait for the right moment, take their belongings. Sometimes they hurt them. I've seen it happen before. You were lucky. You noticed early." "The monk," I said. "A monk warned me." Knock nodded. "Some monks know. They see things. But they can't do much. They can't get involved. They can only warn." I remained silent, processing everything. "Now what? What do I do?" "You need to leave Bangkok," she said. "The sooner the better. But you can't go straight to the airport. They'll be watching. Hotels too. You need to disappear for a few hours. Then I'll take you to a safe place where you can wait until your flight." "Why are you helping me?" I asked. She gave a sad smile. "My brother was a tour guide. 2 years ago he tried to help a tourist who was being robbed. They hurt him badly. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks. Now he's afraid to leave the house. I couldn't let it happen to someone else again." I felt a tightness in my chest. "I'm sorry." "Don't feel," she said. "Just stay alive." Knock opened the door slowly and looked outside. She motioned for me to follow her. We exited the store through the front door. She walked quickly along the sidewalk, and I followed. We entered a covered market. There were hundreds of stalls selling clothes, accessories, and food. The place was packed. Knock led me to a men's clothing stall. She chose a simple black shirt and a cap. She paid with her own money and handed it to me. "Change your clothes, now." I put the shirt over the one I was wearing and put on my cap. She looked and nodded. "Better. Let's go." We left the market through the opposite exit. We took a tuk-tuk. Knock gave the driver quick instructions in Thai. He sped off noisily, skillfully dodging cars and motorcycles. I kept looking back, searching for familiar faces. The one with the cap, the one with the scar, the one from the temple. I didn't see any of them, but that didn't mean they weren't nearby. The tuk-tuk stopped in a residential area. Simple houses, narrow streets, children playing. Knock paid the driver and took me to a small house with a green metal gate. She knocked 3 times. An elderly woman opened it. They spoke in Thai. The woman looked at me suspiciously, but eventually opened the gate and let us in. Inside, the house was simple, but clean. Old furniture, a ceiling fan spinning slowly, the smell of food being prepared. Knock led me to a small room and made me sit down. "You'll stay here for a few hours. This is my aunt. She doesn't speak English, but she'll give you food and water. I need to go back to my tent. If I disappear, they'll get suspicious. I'll be back before nightfall. Then we'll plan how to get you out of here." "Knock," I said. "Thank you. Seriously. I don't know what I would do without you." She shrugged. "Just don't do anything stupid. Don't leave this house. Don't use your cell phone. Don't call anyone. Just wait." She left. I sat there alone with Knock's aunt. The woman brought me a plate of rice with chicken and vegetables. I thanked her in English, and she just smiled. I ate slowly. I was hungrier than I had imagined. When I finished, the woman took the plate and brought me water. I drank it all at once. The hours passed slowly. I kept staring at the door, waiting for Knock to return, hoping nothing would go wrong. The house was silent. I only heard the sound of the fan, the distant sound of children playing in the street, a few motorcycles passing by. I tried not to overthink, not to think about what could happen if they found me, not to think about what they would do. Knock's aunt offered me tea. I accepted. She sat across from me and watched me silently. It wasn't a hostile observation. It was curiosity. Perhaps pity. Maybe she'd seen this happen before. Maybe Bangkok was more dangerous than I'd imagined. Around 5 in the afternoon, Knock returned. She seemed tired. She spoke to her aunt in Thai and then turned to me. Everything's fine. They didn't follow me. But I saw 2 men passing near my tent a few times. They're searching. We have to be careful. What's the plan? I asked. You need to go to the airport, she said. But you can't take a regular taxi. I'll call a friend of mine. He has a car. He'll take you through back streets, away from the main cameras. But you can only go in the early morning. Less traffic. Less chance of being seen. My flight is only in 4 days, I said. Then you change your flight, she replied. Today. Now. Pay whatever it takes. But you need to leave Bangkok as soon as possible. They won't give up. They've already invested too much time in you. I grabbed my phone. Knock held my hand. Quick. Turn it on. Change the flight and turn it off. Don't leave it connected for too long. I called the airline. I explained that I needed to change my flight urgently. The agent gave me the options. There was a flight to Los Angeles leaving at 7 in the morning the next day. The change fee was expensive. Very expensive. But I didn't care. I confirmed. I paid with my credit card. I received the new ticket by email. I turned off my cell phone. Okay, I said. Flight at 7 in the morning. Knock thought for a moment. You need to be at the airport at 4:30. My friend will pick you up here at 3. Try to get some sleep. It's going to be a long night. Sleeping seemed impossible, but I tried. Knock's aunt gave me a mattress and a pillow. I lay down on the living room floor. I closed my eyes. I managed to doze off for a few hours. I woke up at every noise, every passing motorcycle, every voice in the street. At 2:30 in the morning, Knock woke me up. Time to go. My friend is coming. I got up. I washed my face. I grabbed my backpack. I thanked Knock's aunt. She made a blessing gesture with her hands and smiled. We went out into the street. It was dark and silent. Only a few house lights were on. A puppy barked in the distance. A car pulled up in front of the house. It was an old dark blue sedan with dents in the doors. The driver was a young, thin man with tattoos on his arms. He and Knock spoke briefly. She opened the back door and let me in. She got in with me. He'll take you straight to the airport, she said. No stops. If everything goes well, you'll board without any problems. The car started moving. The driver drove fast but carefully. He took small streets, avoiding main avenues. I looked out the window. Bangkok at dawn was different. Quieter. Darker. Only a few establishments were open. Roadside bars, gas stations, food vendors for those who worked the night shift. We were about 20 minutes into the journey when I saw headlights behind us. A black car. It was coming fast. Very fast. Knock's driver looked in the rearview mirror and said something in Thai. Knock turned and looked out the back window. His face tensed. It's them, she said. The driver accelerated. The car rattled on the potholed streets. Knock held onto the front seat. I held onto the handle above the door. The black car accelerated too. It was getting closer. Hold on tight, the driver said in broken English. He turned sharply to the right, entering a side street. Then to the left. Then to the right again. The black car was following us. It didn't lose any distance. The driver honked at a truck that was blocking part of the street. The truck didn't move. He swerved, mounting the sidewalk. We almost hit a lamppost. He went back into the street. The black car was practically glued to us now. I could see two men in the front seat. The driver and the passenger. The passenger was the man with the scar. He saw me through the window and smiled. A cold smile. A smile of someone who knew he was going to win. Nok's driver shouted something in Thai and turned sharply to the left, entering an alley so narrow that the rearview mirrors scraped against the walls. The black car tried to follow but was too big. I heard the sound of metal scraping. They slowed down. We gained a few seconds. "Is the airport still far away?" I shouted. 15 minutes, Nok replied, his voice tense. "But they'll call others. They always have others." The driver left the alley and entered a larger avenue. There was more traffic now, even though it was early morning. Delivery trucks, taxis, a few cars. He accelerated, overtaking everyone, honking incessantly. I looked back. The black car had left the alley and was on the avenue as well. But there were several cars between us now. We ran a red light. Cars honked. A motorcycle almost hit the side of the car. The driver didn't slow down. He continued at high speed. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. My hands were sweating. Nok prayed softly in Thai. We turned right onto an expressway. Fewer cars here. The driver accelerated even more. I looked at the speedometer. 120 kilometers per hour. 130. The car was vibrating, making strange noises, but it kept going. The black car was far away now. I could barely see it. I thought we had made it. I thought I was clear. Then I saw it ahead. Another car. Gray. Stopped on the shoulder with its hazard lights flashing. As we passed it, the car sped off and pulled up behind us. "Shit," the driver said. Now there were two cars. The black one was still behind, far away, and the gray one, fresh and fast, was closing in on us. Nok looked at me. I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. She hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected them to be so organized. The driver tried to accelerate more, but the car was already at its limit. The gray car pulled up alongside us. I looked out the window. The driver was the man in the cap, the one who had followed me from the temple. He looked at me and made a gesture with his hand, a gesture of cutting his throat. I felt my stomach churn. He swerved his car into ours. The impact was strong. Our car went off the road, onto the shoulder, kicking up dust. Nok's driver struggled with the steering wheel, managed to get back onto the road. But the gray car hit us again, this time harder. I heard the sound of metal being crushed. The right side rearview mirror came loose and flew off. "He's going to take us off the road," Nok shouted. "I know," the driver shouted back. He braked sharply. The gray car went straight through. Then he accelerated again and exited to the right, taking an exit ramp. The gray car tried to turn back but missed the exit. We gained a few more seconds. We entered an industrial area. Warehouses, storage facilities, deserted streets. The driver knew the place. He turned left, then right, then left again. He passed between two warehouses, through such a tight space that I closed my eyes thinking we wouldn't make it. We did. We came out the other side. We stopped behind a rusty container. The driver turned off the engine and the lights. We were silent. I listened to my own heart. I heard Nok's heavy breathing. I heard the car's engine cooling down, making crackling noises. Footsteps. Voices. They were searching, walking slowly between the sheds, searching for the blue car, searching for us. Nok held my hand. It was cold. We waited. 1 minute, 2, 3. Footsteps faded. Voices disappeared. The driver waited a little longer. Then he started the engine very slowly. He reversed, without turning on the headlights. He used only the moonlight to see. He reached a street and turned on the headlights again. He accelerated. "Airport," he said. Fast, non-stop. We took another expressway. This one was busier. Trucks, buses, a few cars. The sun was beginning to rise. The sky was clearing on the horizon. I saw signs indicating the airport. 10 kilometers. 8. 6. I looked back. No cars following us. No suspicious cars. It seemed like we had succeeded. It seemed like I was going to be able to board. I took a deep breath. Nok let go of my hand. Almost there, she said. We arrived at the airport. The driver stopped at the arrivals area. Nok opened the door and I got out. I grabbed my backpack. I looked at it. How can I thank you? I asked. Just go, she said. Get on the plane. Go back home. Forget Bangkok. I will never forget you, I said. She smiled. A tired smile. Go on. The driver sped off. I saw the battered blue car driving away in the middle of traffic. I stood there for a few seconds. Then I went into the airport. It was packed with people. Tourists, families, executives. Everyone coming and going. Everyone normal. Everyone safe. I went to the airline counter. I checked in. I checked my backpack. I received my boarding pass. I went through security. I took off my belt, my shoes, my hat. I put everything in the tray. I went through the metal detector. No alarm. I picked up my things from the other side. I put on my shoes. I put on my hat. I walked to the boarding gate. It was far. Terminal 2. I walked quickly, looking back the whole time. I didn't see anyone I knew. I didn't see the guy with the cap. I didn't see the guy with the scar. I didn't see the guy from the temple. I arrived at the gate. There were still 40 minutes until boarding. I sat in a plastic chair. I looked around. Families waiting. Children playing. Everything normal. Everything safe. But I couldn't relax, not until I was inside the plane. I saw a convenience store and went there. I bought water and a sandwich. I went back to the gate. I ate slowly, without much enjoyment. I just needed to put something in my stomach. I hadn't eaten properly in hours. The minutes ticked by slowly. I looked at the clock. I looked at the gate. I looked at the people. Finally, they called for boarding. First class and priority, then everyone else. I waited for my zone to be called. Zone 3. They called. I stood up. I got in line. There were about 20 people ahead of me. The line moved slowly. I looked back one more time, and then I saw him. At the end of the corridor, near a perfume shop. The man from the temple. The one who had followed me on the first day. He was standing there, looking in my direction. My whole body froze. He started walking. He was coming toward me. Fast. I looked ahead. There were still 15 people in line. Very slowly. He was getting closer. 10 meters. 8. The line moved. 3 more people boarded. He was 5 meters away. I looked at the gate attendant. She was calmly checking boarding passes, smiling, wishing people a good trip. Very slowly. 3 meters. He was almost in line. He was going to grab me. He was going to get me out of there. It didn't matter that it was an airport. It didn't matter that there were people around. He was going to do something. 2 people were ahead of me. The attendant checked an elderly woman's card. She smiled, wished her a good trip. The woman walked slowly, very slowly. 1 meter. The man was behind me now. I felt his presence. I smelled him. Cigarettes and sweat. I didn't turn around. I didn't look. I just waited. The person in front of me boarded. My turn. I held out my boarding pass, my hand trembling. The attendant took it, swiped it, looked at the computer screen, smiled. Have a good trip, Mr. Collins. I went through the door. I stepped onto the boarding bridge. I didn't look back. I just walked. Quickly. I reached the plane door. The flight attendant greeted me. I got on. I found my seat. Window, row 23. I sat down. I fastened my seatbelt. I closed my eyes. I heard people coming in, conversations, bags being stowed in the overhead compartments. I kept my eyes closed. I didn't want to see. I didn't want to know if he had gotten a ticket, if he was on the plane, if he was sitting next to me. The flight attendant began the safety briefing. I opened my eyes. I looked around. Families, couples, executives. No one I knew. No one looking at me. I took a deep breath. The plane doors closed. I heard the click of the latch. The pilot spoke on the intercom. "Welcome. Flight time. Weather in Los Angeles." The plane began to move. It left the bridge. It went onto the runway. I looked out the window. Bangkok down below. Buildings, streets, temples. Everything so beautiful from above. So peaceful. As if nothing had happened. As if it were just a normal city. The plane accelerated. I felt the force pushing me against the seat. The runway rushed past the window. And then the nose lifted. The wheels left the ground. We were in the air. Bangkok was behind me. It seemed small. It seemed distant. And finally, for the first time in days, I felt safe. The flight lasted 14 hours. 14 hours where I could truly breathe. 14 hours where nobody followed me, nobody watched me, nobody threatened me. I stayed awake most of the time. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the face of the man with the scar. I saw the man in the cap throwing his car against ours. I saw the man from the temple approaching at the airport. I ate the food they served without tasting it. I drank water. I watched a movie without paying attention. I just needed time to pass. I just needed to get home. I looked out the window and saw only clouds. White. Endless. Safe. We landed in Los Angeles in the mid-afternoon. Local time. My body was still on Bangkok time, but it didn't matter. I went through immigration. The officer looked at my passport, asked some routine questions. Where I was coming from, how long I'd stayed. I answered automatically. He stamped it and let me go. I picked up my backpack from the conveyor belt. It was crumpled. Dirty. Just like me. I went through customs. Nothing to declare. I went out to the arrivals area. There were people waiting with signs. Families hugging. Taxi drivers offering rides. Everything so normal. So American. So safe. I took a bus to Seattle. The trip took 3 hours. I sat by the window and watched the scenery go by. Highways, small towns, forests. Everything so different from Bangkok. So clean. So organized. So predictable. I arrived in Seattle as it was getting dark. I took an Uber to my apartment. The driver tried to strike up a conversation. He asked if I was returning from a trip. I said yes. He asked if it was good. I replied that it was interesting. I didn't want to go into details. He took the cue and remained silent for the rest of the ride. When the car stopped in front of my building, I felt an enormous relief. My building, my street, my city. I paid, grabbed my backpack and went upstairs. 3rd floor. Apartment 307. I put the key in the lock. I went in. I locked the door behind me. I put on the chain. I rested my forehead against the door and finally let the tears flow. I cried for a few minutes. Not from sadness. From relief. From exhaustion. From everything I had held in for the past few days. When I stopped, I washed my face in the kitchen sink. I looked around. Everything just as I left it. The dishes I hadn't washed before traveling were still in the sink. The old sofa with the crooked cushions. The table with my computer and papers scattered around. Home. I took a long bath. The hot water burned my skin, but it felt good. I washed my hair 3 times. I tried to get Bangkok out of me. I tried to get rid of the fear. When I got out, I looked at myself in the mirror. I was thinner. I had deep, dark circles under my eyes. He looked 10 years older, but he was alive. I put on clean clothes, sweatpants, an old t-shirt. I lay down on the sofa and turned on the TV. I looked for something light, a comedy, something to make me forget. But I couldn't concentrate. My mind was in Bangkok, in the streets, in the alleys, in the temple. I picked up my phone. I had messages from friends, from my mother, everyone wanting to know how the trip was, if I'd enjoyed it, if I'd taken nice photos. I didn't reply. I didn't know what to say. How could I explain what happened without sounding crazy? How could I tell them I almost died searching for spiritual peace? I opened the photo app. I had some photos I took on the first day. Wat Phra, Wat Arun, the golden details, the statues, everything so beautiful, everything so fake now. Those photos seemed like they were from another life, from another person, from someone naive who thought the world was only beauty and spirituality. I deleted the photos. All of them. I didn't want to remember. I didn't want anything connecting me to Bangkok. I emptied my phone's trash. Done. As if I'd never been. In the following days, I tried to get back into my routine. I worked on some projects. I answered emails. I had online meetings with clients, but it wasn't the same. I wasn't the same. I got tense with any noise. I looked out the window all the time. I checked the door 3 or 4 times before going to sleep. I only left the house when necessary. Supermarket. Pharmacy. And even then, I walked fast. I looked behind me. I avoided empty places. I avoided walking alone at night. My friends noticed something was wrong. They called me. They texted me. They asked if I was okay. I said yes. I said it was just tiredness from the trip. Jet lag. It would pass soon. But it wouldn't pass. The nights were worse. I dreamed about the men. I dreamed I was running, but my feet wouldn't move. I dreamed they caught me, that they cornered me. I'd wake up sweating, heart racing. I'd get up, drink water, turn on all the lights in the apartment, check the windows, the door. I could only fall back asleep when the sun began to rise. 2 weeks after returning, I decided to seek help. I made an appointment with a psychologist, a kind, middle-aged woman who listened to me without judgment. I told her everything: the temple, the monk, the men, the escape, knock, the airport. She wrote some things down, asked questions. In the end, she said I was showing symptoms of post-traumatic stress, that it was normal after what I'd been through, that it would get better with time, with therapy, maybe with medication if necessary. I started going to therapy every week. I talked about what happened, about how I felt, about the fear that wouldn't go away. She taught me breathing techniques, techniques to control anxiety. Little by little, I got better. Not cured, but better. A month later, I managed to go out at night for the first time. I went to dinner with friends at a restaurant near my house. They were happy to see me. They said I had disappeared, that they were worried. I apologized. I said it had been a difficult trip. I didn't go into details. They didn't insist. During dinner, one of my friends mentioned he was planning a trip to Japan. He asked if I wanted to go along. My stomach tightened. The idea of traveling again, of being in another country, of being vulnerable. I said no, that I had a lot of work, that maybe another time. He understood. He changed the subject. I walked home. The night was cold. The streets of Seattle were quiet. I walked slowly. I took a deep breath. I looked up and saw the stars. I thought of Bangkok. I thought of Nok. I thought of how she risked her own safety to help me, without knowing me, without expecting anything in return. I got home and turned on my computer. I searched for news about tourists being attacked in Bangkok. I found several cases, some recent, some old. I realized it wasn't just me, that it happened to more people than I imagined. But most weren't as lucky as I was. Most didn't encounter a knock. I thought about trying to contact her, to thank her again, to ask if she was okay. But I didn't have her phone number. I didn't have her last name. I didn't know exactly where her stall was. I only knew that she sold flowers, that she had long black hair, that she had a brother who was injured trying to help someone, and that she saved me. 2 months after the trip, I finally managed to sleep through the night, without waking up, without nightmares. I woke up and felt something different, lighter. I had coffee. I worked. I went for a walk in the park. I saw people jogging, families having picnics, dogs playing. Normal life. I realized that Bangkok hadn't destroyed me. It had changed me. It had shown me that the world wasn't just what I saw in travel books, that beautiful places weren't always safe, that people with good intentions didn't always end up well, and that sometimes the peace we seek is closer than we imagine, not in golden temples on the other side of the world, but at home, in safety, in routine. I went to Bangkok looking to reconnect with myself, looking for spirituality, looking for renewal, and I found it, just not in the way I expected. I learned that being alive is renewal enough, that having somewhere to return to is spirituality enough, that security isn't boredom, it's a privilege. I never went into a temple again. I never planned a solo trip anywhere again. And every time I see news about Bangkok, about its golden temples and exotic beauty, I remember the monk whispering those words. Someone has been following you since you entered, and I'm grateful I listened. I acted. I escaped, because not everyone is that lucky. Today, 3 years later, I still think about Bangkok. Not every day, but whenever I see incense burning, whenever I hear about Thailand, whenever someone asks me about travel. The scar isn't visible. I don't have marks on my body, but I have them in the way I see the world. I continued therapy for another year. The psychologist helped me process the trauma, to understand that it wasn't my fault, that I hadn't done anything wrong, that being a tourist alone isn't a crime, that wanting to visit temples isn't naivete, that the problem was the men who chose to pursue me, not me. I went back to work normally. I got new clients. I did good projects. My professional life got back on track. But something changed. I stopped romanticizing travel. I stopped thinking that visiting exotic places would solve my inner problems. I realized that running away from home isn't the answer. It's just a postponement. I rekindled friendships with people I had neglected. I spent more time with my family. I visited my mother every month. She noticed I was different, more present, more grateful. She asked if anything had happened in Bangkok. I told her. Not everything, but enough for her to understand. She cried. She hugged me. She said she had been afraid of losing me. I had been too. I met someone, a woman named Sarah, a designer too. We met at a work event. We started talking. She was funny, intelligent, kind. We went out a few times. It turned into a relationship. 6 months later, we were living together. She knew about Bangkok. I told her right away. I thought she would find it strange, that she would see me as someone traumatized. But she just held my hand and said that the important thing was that I was there, alive, safe. With Sarah, I took short trips. Portland, Vancouver, San Francisco, places nearby, places where I spoke the language, where I knew the laws, where I knew how to ask for help if I needed it. She never pressured me to go further, never suggested Asia, Europe, nothing that could make me uncomfortable. And I'm grateful for that every day. Sometimes, late at night when Sarah is already asleep, I pick up my phone and search for Nok. I try to find her flower stall. I try to find news about her. I try to find out if she's okay. I never find anything. Bangkok is big. Flower stalls are common. And Nok isn't a rare name. But I like to think that she's okay. That she's still selling flowers. That she's still helping people when she can. That her brother has gotten better. That their lives have become easier. I also think about the monk, Phra Kaew, if that was indeed his name. If he's still at the temple. If he's still warning tourists when he senses danger. If anyone listens. If anyone acts in time. I hope so. I hope other people have the same luck as me. And I think about the men. The 3 who chased me. If they were arrested. If they're still doing it. If they've chosen other targets. Other lone tourists. Other atoms who just wanted to find peace. That part makes me feel bad. knowing that they're probably still out there, that they probably hurt other people, and that I did nothing to stop them. I tried to report it when I got back. I called the Seattle police. I explained the situation. They said they couldn't do anything, that the crime happened in another country, that I should have filed a police report in Thailand. But how? Running through alleys? Hiding in Nock's aunt's house? There was no way. And now it was too late. This powerlessness bothers me, but I've learned to live with it. I've learned that not everything has a solution. Not everything is just. Sometimes we just survive, and that has to be enough. If someone asked me today if Bangkok is worth it, I wouldn't know how to answer. The photos people show are beautiful. The temples are truly impressive. The culture is rich. The food is incredible. But all of this comes with a risk that most tourists don't see, because they're in groups, because they have guides, because they don't stray from the main routes. I distanced myself. I entered the empty corridors. I walked alone, and I paid the price. Not with my life. I was lucky, but I paid with peace of mind, with the ability to trust, with the desire to explore. So if you go to Bangkok or anywhere similar, be careful. Don't walk alone in deserted places. Don't ignore warnings. Don't underestimate the danger just because the place is beautiful. Beauty and danger go hand in hand, and we don't always come out unscathed. I left, but with scars that no one sees. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and leave a like. Comment below if you've ever experienced a dangerous situation while traveling, or if you know someone who has. Your stories can help others be more aware. And remember, the world is beautiful, but it's not always safe. Take care. Until next time.